Hey guy, tonight we're going to step back, way back, into a world that feels almost too vast to imagine. We're talking about 4.7 million years ago, a time when our earliest ancestors were just starting to figure out how to survive in a place where every sunrise promised either a meal or a mistake you wouldn't get to make twice. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to see who's joining me from all over the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some gentle background sound. And let's step into tonight's journey together. The heat hits you first. It's not the polite warmth of a summer afternoon, it's the kind of dry, unfiltered sunlight that makes the ground crack and the air shimmer. You're standing on a high, open plain, the sky above a pale, almost blinding blue. Every sound is sharper here, the whistle of wind over the grass, the faint crackle of something moving just out of sight, and there they are, a small group of early hominins, maybe a dozen at most, moving slowly through the tall yellow grass. They're not in a hurry. In fact, they don't dare rush. Every footstep is measured, every glance to the horizon deliberate. You can almost feel their caution. Because out here, caution is the line between life and becoming someone else's dinner. One of them pauses, crouching low. You follow their gaze and spot it too, a ripple in the grass. Could be the wind. Could be a gazelle. Or something with teeth. Out here, guessing wrong doesn't come with a polite try again. These are Australopithecus afarensis, though no one here is going to bother with the Latin. They're shorter than you, light-footed, their arms just a touch longer in proportion. They move with a curious half-step between walking upright and swaying like they still remember the trees. And yes, they do remember the trees, because the ground isn't always a safe place to be. The sun's heat presses harder, but you notice something, they're not wilting under it the way you might. Their bodies have adapted to this climate, skin darkened for protection, muscles lean from constant movement. You catch yourself thinking, no gym memberships, no protein shakes, just survival as a full-time job. You follow as they reach a shallow rise. From up here, the land rolls away in every direction, dotted with acacia trees and the occasional dark line of a distant river. It's beautiful, in a way that's almost too big for comfort. No fences. No safety nets. Just the raw, open world, and yet, despite the risks, this is where humanity's first steps are happening. Not in a neat little village. Not with cozy houses or Wi-Fi signals, just bare feet on hard earth, each movement shaped by an instinct so deep it doesn't need words. Historians still debate whether these early ancestors traveled in fixed territories or wandered constantly, following the shifting patterns of food and water. Some argue that the open savanna pushed them to explore farther, planting the seeds of curiosity that would one day send humans across oceans and into space. Others think survival was so precarious that sticking to familiar ground was the only smart choice. Standing here, it's hard to say which is true. The horizon seems to invite you forward and threaten you in equal measure. A sudden sound interrupts your thoughts, a harsh, guttural bark from somewhere downwind. Every head in the group snaps toward it. The youngest huddle closer to the center. There's no discussion, no debate. The group changes course instantly, melting into the tall grass. You follow, heart rate kicking up even though you know this is just a story. Well, mostly just a story. As you move, the wind picks up, carrying scents you can't quite name, dry soil, crushed grass, and something faintly metallic, like rain that hasn't arrived yet. You realize that here, your nose might be as important as your eyes. Early humans had to read the air the way you might read a text message, for hints, for warnings, for opportunity. By the time the sun starts to dip, the group has reached a stand of thorny shrubs. They settle here for the night, not because it's particularly comfortable, but because the dense branches will make predators think twice before charging in. You lower yourself onto the hard ground, feeling the day's heat slowly fade. The first star appears, sharp and white in the darkening sky. You wonder how many nights like this they've seen, how many times they've watched the same constellations rise, even if they didn't have names for them. Maybe, just maybe, they felt the same quiet awe you do now. The wind sighs through the grass. Somewhere out there, something moves. You don't need to see it to know it's watching. Out here, you're always being watched. The night air hums softly, a low vibration you feel more than hear. You lie there with the group, your back against the prickly wall of thornbush, every sense sharpened by darkness. The rustle of grass in the distance could be nothing, or it could be dinner with claws and an attitude problem. Either way, the earliest humans don't take chances. One of them, a female with sharp eyes, lifts her head. Her nostrils flare. You copy her instinctively, though all you smell is dry air and the faint tang of earth. She tilts her head toward the horizon, and you notice the wind has shifted. The whispering grass now carries different news. It's their language, the language of the wind, long before words. This was how survival spoke. A sudden hush means danger. A long sigh through the reeds could mean water nearby. A swirling gust from behind means the smell of the group is being carried ahead, right to whatever might be hunting them. The fact that you've never thought about this before makes you realize just how soft modern life has made you. Imagine grocery shopping where the store occasionally tries to eat you. They shift their positions, the group instinctively aligning with the breeze so their scent trails behind them, not toward the unknown. It's a tiny adjustment, but it's the kind of thing that means they'll see tomorrow's sunrise. Historians still debate whether early hominins learned these wind cues from their own observation or whether they copied the behavior of animals. Some think it was a natural extension of keen senses inherited from tree-dwelling ancestors. Others argue that survival in open grasslands made this skill a necessity, sharpening instincts at lightning speed. Looking around, you see evidence for both. Watching the group's eyes follow a flock of birds in the distance, you can tell they're reading the land like a living map. The wind carries more than just warnings. Tonight, it brings a new sound, a hollow, rattling vibration from somewhere far off. You strain to identify it. To you, it's an odd curiosity. To them, it's a trigger. They tighten together, small ones at the center, and everyone's eyes turn to the shadows. The sound grows louder, more distinct. It's not a predator. It's the wind itself, howling through a distant rock formation, echoing like an ancient horn. You watch as a young male tilts his head, curious, starting to edge toward the sound. Instantly, an older female grips his arm and shakes her head. Curiosity is good until it gets you killed. You almost laugh, realizing this is the first parental don't touch that moment in history. When dawn creeps in, it's subtle, a pale smear of light on the edge of the horizon. The group rises before the sun fully wakes, stretching their limbs with slow, deliberate movements. No groggy morning faces here. They're tuned to the rhythm of the world, up before the heat, moving while the predators that hunt at night are still fading back into their dens. The wind is calmer now, and with the quiet comes opportunity. They step out of the thornbush circle and start walking toward the faint smell of water. Your feet crunch over dry soil, every step sending up tiny puffs of dust. Without the wind's warnings, you realize they must rely on sight and sound, and both are razor sharp. Halfway to the river, the wind stirs again, carrying with it the sweet, earthy scent of crushed leaves. It's a good smell. It means plant life, possibly fruit, maybe shade, maybe both. The group adjusts course without hesitation. Modern humans might think of wind as just weather, a background detail. But here, it's the oldest messenger. It can mean food. It can mean danger. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it can mean both at once, because danger and dinner often travel together. As you follow, a sudden gust sweeps past you, tossing your hair into your eyes. You laugh quietly at yourself. Here you are, getting annoyed by a breeze, while for them it's a survival guide. Somewhere deep inside, though, you wonder if you'd know how to read it too, given enough time. The breeze lingers as the sun climbs higher, its golden light spilling across the savanna. You follow the group toward a cluster of low trees, their branches twisted like they've been holding secrets for centuries. The air is dry, but there's a faint tang, sharp and smoky, that wasn't here before. You glance around, trying to find the source, and then you see it, a faint wisp curling upward from the far side of the trees. The group halts. Every head turns toward the strange sight, and no one moves for several long breaths. You realize you're seeing something extraordinary, something that will change everything for humanity. The smell grows stronger. A thin plume rises from the ground ahead, bending with the wind. The trees hide most of it, but you can hear faint pops and crackles. Somewhere in the distance, lightning has kissed the dry grass, and the earth is offering its first whisper of fire. The group edges closer. They've seen fire before, but always from a distance, always as something dangerous, untouchable. Today, the wind is carrying smoke, but no heat. Whatever burned has mostly died out, leaving behind smoldering sticks and blackened earth. One of them steps forward, crouching to examine a glowing branch. It pulses faintly, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Another joins, waving their hand above it, feeling the warmth. You can almost hear their thoughts, dangerous. But fascinating, historians still debate how early humans first interacted with fire. Some believe it was purely opportunistic, taking advantage of flames started by lightning or volcanic activity. Others argue that curiosity quickly turned to experimentation, bringing smoldering pieces back to camp, learning to feed them, to keep them alive. Standing here, you get the sense that both are true. The spark of fascination is as strong as the spark itself. A young member of the group reaches out to touch a blackened stick. The older male beside him barks a sharp warning sound, pulling him back. It's the earliest recorded instance of don't stick your fingers in that, and you're oddly comforted that some rules never change. Still, no one leaves. They stand around the remnants of the fire, inhaling its scent, feeling its fading warmth, watching embers glow and die. The air tastes different here, rich, almost sweet, with a hint of danger. The group lingers until the sun is overhead. Then, with no way to keep the fire alive, they turn away. But you notice one female carrying a charred stick, twirling it in her hand. Maybe she likes the texture. Maybe she's already wondering if this strange blackened wood could be useful for something else. Tools, perhaps. Or markings. Or maybe it's just a prehistoric souvenir, proof that she stood close to something powerful. As you leave the site, the wind changes again, carrying a mix of scents, smoke fading behind you, and somewhere ahead, the faint, cool scent of water. You realize that for them, fire is still a mystery, but one day, it will become their greatest ally. For now, though, the fire's first whisper fades into memory. The group walks on, their shadows stretching long in the midday light. And you, strangely, feel a little jealous. They're seeing the world at its rawest, where even a spark in the grass is enough to rewrite the future. The heat presses harder now, wrapping itself around you like a heavy, invisible blanket. Sweat beads on your forehead, though the early humans seem unfazed. Their pace slows, not from weakness, but from calculation. Moving too fast under this kind of sun is an invitation to collapse. Ahead, the land shifts from open grass to scattered patches of rocky ground. You notice one of the males lag behind, scanning the ground intently. His eyes are locked on something small and pale among the stones. He bends, picks it up, and you see the glint of sharpness as sunlight catches its edge. It's nothing fancy, just a broken shard of stone, but it fits his hand like it was made for it. He turns it over, running his thumb along the chipped edge, then begins scraping it against a piece of wood. The sound is soft, deliberate, almost rhythmic. Historians still debate whether the earliest stone tools were created intentionally or discovered by accident. Did someone realize a broken rock could cut through plant fibers more easily than teeth? Or did sharp edges first come from nature's own handiwork, rocks split by heat or pressure, and humans simply recognized their usefulness? Watching this, it's easy to imagine both paths leading here. Another joins him, this time with a thicker stone. She crouches low, testing it against a root, prying loose strips of edible bark. You notice her expression, or at least the subtle shift in her body language. There's satisfaction in it. She's not just surviving, she's solving problems. The group pauses in the shade of a boulder, some nibbling at plants they've foraged. The toolmaker continues working, striking one stone against another in short, controlled motions. Small flakes scatter to the ground, each one sharp enough to slice through hide or tendon. You wince at the thought, then remember, here, that's not violent, it's necessary. A younger member of the group picks up one of the discarded flakes and studies it. His grip is clumsy, his movements uncertain. He tries scraping it along a stick but ends up dropping it. You can almost hear the prehistoric version of, "You'll get it eventually." One odd thing catches your eye: the stone tools aren't just functional, they're being handled with a certain care. Not quite reverence, but close. It's as if these rough edges are more than just objects, they're extensions of the hand, symbols of capability. The scholarly debates go even deeper here. Some researchers argue that early tool use was the turning point in human evolution, a leap in cognition that separated us from other primates. Others believe it was simply one skill among many, evolving alongside foraging, shelter building, and social cooperation. You wonder if the truth isn't a mix of both, that a sharpened rock was the first step in a much longer chain reaction. The air shifts again, a slow, cooling breeze cutting through the heat. It carries with it the faint smell of the river you've been chasing all morning. The group begins moving again, stones now clutched in their hands. They're not just walking toward water, they're walking armed. As you follow, you feel a strange sense of security. Not because you're safe, you're definitely not, but because for the first time in this journey, you're seeing humans shape their world instead of just reacting to it. The air grows heavier, rich with the smell of wet earth long before the river comes into view. The group's pace quickens, stones still in hand, eyes scanning the ground for fresh tracks. You start to hear it, a low, steady murmur, like a whisper that's been going on for hours. The sound of moving water. When the trees part, there it is, a slow, winding river, its surface glinting like molten silver under the midday sun. It's wider than you expected, the far bank a blur of reeds and shadow. The current looks gentle enough, but the way the group approaches tells you they know better. The first to reach the bank squats low, dipping a hand into the water and sniffing it before drinking. It's not superstition, it's survival. Even clean-looking water can carry danger here. Another kneels nearby, splashing her face and neck, steam rising faintly from her skin as the heat evaporates. You notice movement in the shallows, small, darting shapes just below the surface. Fish. The group sees them too, and suddenly the mood shifts from thirst to opportunity. One male wades in up to his knees, moving slowly, each step deliberate. He's not just walking, he's stalking. Historians still debate how early humans first caught fish. Some believe it was by hand, grabbing them from shallow pools. Others think sharpened sticks came first, a natural extension of hunting on land. Here, you see the most basic method, patience and lightning reflexes. The male freezes, then plunges both hands into the water. There's a brief splash, and when he lifts them, a wriggling fish flails in his grip. It's small, but the triumphant sound he makes is unmistakable. The others gather quickly, curiosity pulling them closer. One even pokes the fish with a stick, as if trying to understand what this slippery, shimmering thing is made of. A little further downstream, two females are pulling at the tall reeds that grow thick along the bank. The roots are pale and firm, carrying a faintly sweet smell. You take a bite of one, it's crisp, fibrous, surprisingly refreshing. They're gathering them not just for eating now, but likely for later, wrapping them in leaves to carry. And then, just as you're starting to feel the peace of the moment, the river reminds you why it's not a friendly neighbor. A ripple cuts across the water, wider and deeper than the fish you've seen. The group goes still. One of them hisses a sharp warning, and everyone begins backing away from the shore. A long, narrow shape surfaces briefly, just the ridged eyes and nostrils of a crocodile, before sliding silently back under. Your heart jumps. The group has no doubt what it means. This is its river, not theirs. They retreat to the safety of the trees, fish in hand, reeds bundled. No one speaks, not that they have words for this, but the message is clear enough. Here, water is both life and danger, a truth that will never change. The scholarly debates swirl here too. Some say rivers were the cradle of innovation, forcing humans to invent tools, fishing techniques, and new strategies for safety. Others argue rivers were avoided when possible, too dangerous to linger near. Watching this scene, you can see why both might be right. As the group moves away from the bank, the sound of the river fades behind you, replaced by the steady hum of the savanna. The air feels lighter, the ground firmer, but the scent of water clings to you. You have a feeling you'll remember it for a long time, part refreshment, part warning. The river scent lingers in your nose as the group climbs a small rise, leaving the wet earth behind. The ground here is firmer, dotted with patches of short grass and clusters of stone still warm from the afternoon sun. The sky has shifted, no longer the punishing glare of midday, but a softer gold, the light stretching shadows long across the land. The group slows, scanning for a place to settle before nightfall. They find it in a shallow dip ringed by low trees, their gnarled branches forming a kind of natural wall. It's not impenetrable, but it's enough to give a sense of safety, or at least the illusion of it. As they gather, you notice the subtle choreography of their movements. Some collect fallen branches and arrange them in a loose pile. Others scout the perimeter, heads turning with sharp, bird-like precision. Two younger members plop down together, picking at the grass and mumbling in low, rhythmic sounds, almost like a lullaby. Night in this world is not the quiet, peaceful thing you know. Here, it's an uninvited guest, bringing with it all the hunters who've been sleeping through the day. The group knows this. They position themselves so that the oldest and strongest sit at the edges, the smallest in the center. Historians still debate whether early humans truly slept through the night or kept a rotating watch. Some suggest their rest was more like a series of short naps, always light enough to wake at the snap of a twig. Others think the safety of numbers allowed deeper sleep, at least for a few precious hours. Looking at this circle, you suspect the truth lies somewhere in between. Rest is a luxury that bends to survival's rules. As darkness deepens, the stars appear, one by one, like cautious onlookers. There's no fire tonight. The group doesn't have the means to make one yet. Instead, they rely on the pale wash of moonlight and the sharpness of their own senses. A gentle wind stirs, cool against your skin, carrying with it the distant roar of something large, lion, perhaps, or leopard. No one panics. They've heard this before. The sound is noted, stored, and measured against the distance. Still far enough, without words, the group begins to settle. Some lie on their sides, others curl in tight balls. A young one presses against an older female's back, drawing comfort from her warmth. You copy them, pulling your knees close, feeling the uneven ground beneath you. In the stillness, you notice another sound, the soft hum of insects, the faint creak of tree limbs swaying in the breeze. It's almost hypnotic. You realize how easy it would be to drift off if not for the constant awareness that you're part of someone else's food chain. One odd moment catches your attention. A male tilts his head toward the sky, tracking a bright point of light. He stares at it for a long time, his eyes narrowing as though he's marking its place. Historians still debate when humans first began connecting the stars to navigation or storytelling, but here, you can see the seed of it. He doesn't need a word for constellation to feel its pull. You close your eyes for a moment. The air is cooler now, the earth under you radiating the day's fading warmth. Somewhere in the distance, something howls, long and low. No one stirs. For tonight, the circle holds. The morning arrives not with an alarm clock, but with the gradual brightening of the horizon, a pale wash of blue pushing back the stars. You stir before the sun fully breaks, because here, the light itself is a signal. Daytime is safer, but only slightly. The group moves slowly at first, stretching, yawning, shaking off the stiffness from a night spent on hard ground. A few step away to relieve themselves, always in pairs. You notice they don't wander far. The darkness may have faded, but the predators haven't vanished. They've just shifted into the background, waiting for another chance. Today's task is different, fruit gathering. The dry season is creeping in, and the riverbanks won't feed everyone forever. The group moves toward a stand of fig trees, their branches heavy with greenish bulbs that soften as they ripen. The smell grows stronger the closer you get, a heady mix of sweetness and ferment. When they arrive, there's no polite cue. Everyone knows what's edible and what isn't, and they reach for the good fruit without hesitation. Some figs are eaten on the spot, torn open with blunt fingers and teeth. Others are carried away, stuffed into makeshift leaf bundles or wedged between arm and body. The sweet juice drips down chins and onto the dry soil, attracting a parade of ants within seconds. Historians still debate whether early humans were primarily gatherers who occasionally hunted, or hunters who supplemented with gathered food. The evidence from ancient pollen, tooth wear, and fossilized plant remains paints a picture of a diet far richer in fruit and nuts than most modern people imagine. In moments like this, with the sticky sweetness on your tongue, it's easy to believe that gathering wasn't just survival, it was pleasure. There's an odd detail to today's forage. One older female seems to prefer the overripe fruit, ignoring the firm, perfect figs in favor of those soft enough to split at a touch. She eats them slowly, her eyes half closed, as if savoring a private ritual. Anthropologists have suggested that fermented fruit could have provided mild intoxicating effects, a prehistoric happy hour, if you will. Maybe she knows something the others don't. Or maybe she just likes a little fizz in her breakfast. The work doesn't end with full bellies. After eating, the group shakes loose branches, knocking down any fruit too high to reach. These are collected in a shallow pit near the base of the tree, covered with leaves to keep away birds. It's not refrigeration, but it buys them a little time and nature's version of a pantry. By mid-morning, the air is warm again, and the cicadas begin their buzzing chorus. You wipe your sticky hands on your legs, feeling the fine layer of dust cling to your skin. It's uncomfortable, but in this world, clean is a concept with different boundaries. A commotion erupts nearby, two juveniles squabbling over a half-ripe figure. Their sharp cries carry, and the group's leader glances toward the sound, ears tuned for any rustle in the bushes that doesn't belong. The tension fades when nothing emerges, but it's a reminder, every noise here is both a call and a risk. When the last figs are collected, the group begins the walk back, their shadows shorter now under the high sun. You can still smell the sweetness clinging to your fingers, even after brushing them in the dirt. It's a small comfort, a portable reminder that survival isn't only teeth and claws, it's also about finding the good things, even in a hard world. The heat by midday is like stepping into a slow oven. The air itself feels heavy, pressing down on your shoulders, making each movement deliberate and slow. You've learned to pace yourself. Rushing in this kind of weather isn't just exhausting, it's dangerous. The group heads toward a patch of scrubland dotted with low, thorny bushes. At first, it looks like nothing worth the effort, but you quickly see the reason. These shrubs hide clusters of tubers beneath the soil, the starchy roots that can keep hunger away when fruit is scarce. Digging for them is no small task. The tools are crude, sticks with sharpened ends, sometimes just hands clawing through dry earth. You kneel beside one of the women, mimicking her movements. She presses her stick into the ground, twisting it to loosen the soil before pulling away clumps with her fingers. It's rhythmic, almost meditative, until a stubborn root refuses to budge. She grunts softly and leans into it, her forearms flexing with effort. When it finally comes free, it's covered in dirt, knotted like a misshapen carrot. She knocks it against the ground to dislodge some of the soil, then hands it to you with a small nod, as if you've earned the right to carry part of the day's haul. Historians still debate how early humans learned which roots were edible and which could kill you. Theories range from trial and error, with tragic consequences, to the observation of animals and gradual cultural memory, knowledge passed down from those who lived long enough to teach. In modern terms, it's like figuring out your grocery store's mystery aisle without the helpful labels. A strange thing happens while you dig. An adolescent male suddenly drops his stick, crouches low, and begins scooping up handfuls of dirt into his mouth. You blink, unsure you saw it right. But he keeps going, eating the earth like it's something precious. Geophagy, scientists call it the eating of soil, sometimes to supplement minerals, sometimes to ease stomach trouble. Maybe he's lacking iron, or maybe his gut just knows something you don't. It's odd, a little unsettling, but in this world, oddities often have purpose. By early afternoon, the group has collected a decent pile of tubers. They're fibrous and hard now, but with some time over the fire tonight, they'll soften enough to chew. A few are split open right here, the core scraped out and eaten raw despite the bitter taste. Hunger doesn't wait politely for cooking. The trek back is slower than usual, burdens heavier, legs more tired. Sweat beads along your spine and drips down to the waistband of your hide garment, sticking the fabric uncomfortably against your skin. Flies seem to sense the fatigue, hovering insistently near your face. Halfway home, there's a pause. One of the older men freezes mid-step, his eyes scanning the brush. The group follows his gaze, muscles tightening, ready to bolt or defend. The tension stretches out for several long seconds before the rustling resolves into a harmless warthog, trotting away with its tail straight up like a little flag. Someone chuckles softly, breaking the moment, and the group resumes walking. Back at the camp, the tubers are piled neatly near the central fire pit. You sit down with relief, brushing away a bead of sweat that's rolled dangerously close to your eye. Your fingers smell faintly of earth, and there's a certain satisfaction in that, proof that you've helped turn a patch of scrub into tomorrow's meal. The day begins before the first blush of dawn touches the horizon. You wake to a soft chorus of murmurs and the rustle of movement, people stretching, cracking joints, coaxing embers back to life with slow breaths. The air is cool now, carrying the damp scent of dew, but you know it won't stay this way for long. Today is different. The elders have decided the group will move toward the river, several hours' journey, because the dry season is tightening its grip. Water is life, and staying put too long in one place risks drinking a hole into your own survival. You sling a small bundle over your shoulder, containing little more than a sharpened stick, a scrap of hide, and some dried fruit. Others carry their own small loads, gourds for water, baskets for whatever they might find, and, in one case, the roasted bones of a recent meal likely to be cracked later for marrow. The walk is steady but cautious. Each step brings the soundscape to life, insects whirring in the grass, distant bird calls, the occasional rustle of something unseen moving in the undergrowth. You can feel your calves and thighs engaging constantly, adjusting to uneven ground. Your breath falls into rhythm with the group's footsteps. Historians still debate how early humans navigated over long distances before maps or compasses. Some suggest a deep mental mapping of landmarks, others point to the ability to follow seasonal animal migrations or even subtle changes in the wind. You suspect it's all of the above, mixed with something you might call ancestral muscle memory. Midway through, a strange scene unfolds. The lead tracker stops, crouching low to the ground. You follow his gaze to see what he's noticed, a series of footprints in the damp soil, but not the usual antelope or warthog tracks. These are human. Or at least, mostly human. The toes are longer, the arch flatter, suggesting a group from another band or maybe even a remnant population with slightly different anatomy. For a moment, everyone stands silent, calculating whether this is a good sign, allies, or a bad one, competitors. The prints are old enough to have lost their crisp edges, so the tension slowly eases. Approaching the river, the sound of rushing water becomes a promise in the distance. The banks here are rich with life, tall reeds sway gently, and tiny insects hover above the surface in shimmering clouds. Some people head straight to the water, kneeling to drink deeply, cupping their hands like makeshift bowls. You resist the urge to gulp. After hours in the heat, drinking too fast can upset your stomach. The river offers more than just water. A small group begins checking for edible plants along the bank, while two others wade in up to their knees, scanning for fish. The tools are primitive, sharpened sticks and woven baskets, but skill makes up for technology. You watch as one man stands perfectly still, waiting for a shadow to pass in the shallows before striking with lightning speed. Then there's the noise. A splash downstream, louder than any fish. Everyone's heads snap in that direction. The water parts briefly to reveal the ridged back of a crocodile, gliding silently. It's a reminder that water here is both giver and taker of life. The fishing stops instantly, and the group retreats to a safer section. You spend the rest of the afternoon gathering what you can: roots, wild greens, a handful of small fish caught in a reed trap. The sun begins to sink, painting the river in shades of molten gold. The group decides to camp here for the night, fires carefully placed away from the water's edge. As you sit by the flames, watching the fish cook and the shadows deepen, the river hums in the background, a constant reminder of the delicate balance between survival and danger. The river camp wakes slowly, as if reluctant to leave the comfort of cool morning air. You rise to see a thin mist clinging to the surface of the water, curling and shifting like it's trying to hide secrets beneath. Your feet sink slightly into the damp soil as you move, each step making a soft squelch that would drive anyone wearing sneakers absolutely mad. Today's plan isn't to move. Staying near the river means opportunity, food, tools, maybe even a little rest from the constant travel. But it also means more careful watchfulness. The crocodile from yesterday is still on everyone's mind, even if no one says it aloud. You start the day helping weave new baskets from reeds, fingers working in a repetitive, meditative pattern. The older women in the group show you how to keep the weave tight so smaller fish can't slip through. The smell of fresh-cut reeds is sharp and green, and little shreds stick to your hands, not far away. Others are setting snares along faint game trails. The traps are simple, loops of twisted vine anchored to bent saplings, but effective. You've learned that simplicity is the real genius of early human technology. Everything is either immediately useful or not worth the effort to carry. Around midday, the river becomes the focus again. A small group wades in with more purpose this time, positioning the baskets and slowly herding fish toward them. The technique looks almost lazy, gentle splashes. Quiet movements, but you know it's all about patience. Quick movements send fish darting in every direction, slow ones keep them curious long enough to be caught. Historians still debate the exact point at which early humans began relying heavily on fishing as a main food source. Some argue that river-based living was a seasonal strategy, tied to migration patterns. Others suggest that rivers were constant enough to support semi-permanent camps. Watching your group now, you lean toward the latter. Why leave when dinner literally swims past your ankles? A strange interruption comes when one of the children wanders back from the reeds holding something unexpected, a smooth, oval stone with a shallow groove running along one side. It's too perfect to be an accident. The elders inspect it, nodding slowly. It's a grinding stone, likely dropped by another group months or even years ago. It sparks a quiet debate. Did they abandon it, or was it lost in a hurry? And more importantly, are they still around? The afternoon passes with the steady rhythm of gathering and preparing food. Fish are cleaned with sharp flakes of stone, their silvery scales catching the light before being tossed aside. Roots are pounded into mash, mixed with river herbs that smell vaguely like pepper and mint. The camp smells of smoke and damp earth, with a faint tang of raw fish. Later, as the sun begins to dip, the crocodile reappears. This time it's closer, eyes barely breaking the surface, fixed on your group. No one shouts. Instead, the camp quietly shifts activity to higher ground, leaving the shore empty. The unspoken rule is clear: never challenge an animal built entirely for patience and violence. That night, the fires burn a little brighter than usual, as if more light could push back the river's dark edge. You lie back, listening to the steady hiss of insects and the slow gurgle of water. Above, the stars smear across the sky in a band so thick it feels like you could scoop them up in your hands. The river has fed you today, but it's also reminded you of your place in the grand, untidy order of things. Out here, you're not the top predator. You're just another creature trying to last until morning. The morning begins not with sunlight, but with sound. A low, distant rumble or thunder, maybe, but you're not entirely sure. In this world, even something as harmless as the weather carries a small weight of uncertainty. The air feels thicker than usual, damp and warm, and every movement makes your skin stick to itself. The group moves carefully today. The plan is to travel along the river for a while, keeping close to its bends and archbows, because water is both life and, when needed, a road. You carry little more than a sling of tools, a couple of roasted tubers from last night, and a sharpened stone blade tied at your waist. There's no room for clutter in this life. Along the way, you pass through a stretch of forest so dense it swallows sound. Every step sinks into a carpet of decomposing leaves, releasing a sweet, earthy smell. Insects buzz in erratic bursts, bouncing off your skin like badly aimed pebbles. Somewhere ahead, you hear the plop of something heavy dropping into the water, maybe a fish, maybe not. You come across a patch of wild fruit trees, their branches bent low under the weight of small, reddish orbs. They smell slightly fermented, a sign that they're ripe, but maybe too ripe. You take a cautious bite. Sweet, yes, but with a faint bite of alcohol. The elders say eating too many will make your head spin and your stomach rebel, but a few are safe. You pocket a couple, because life without snacks is no life at all. Historians still debate whether early humans actively sought out mildly fermented fruits for the energy boost, or if it was just an accidental discovery. Some suggest that the occasional tipsy campfire might have been humanity's earliest experiments in social bonding. If so, you're standing in the prehistoric version of a very small, very exclusive bar. A strange sight catches your attention, a cluster of perfectly straight sticks, stripped of bark, jammed into the riverbank. They look deliberate, but no one in your group placed them there. Theories spread quickly, markers left by another group, tools for catching fish, or maybe just the work of some particularly ambitious beavers. You can't decide which idea is less unsettling. By midday, the distant rumble you heard earlier has found you. The sky turns the color of old bruises, and the first drops of rain slap against your shoulders with the force of thrown pebbles. The group picks up the pace, searching for shelter. You find it under a natural overhang of rock, where the earth rises in a lopsided shelf. It's dry enough, but the smell of damp stone and old bat droppings makes you wrinkle your nose. The rain is relentless, turning the river from a calm companion into a restless, brown torrent. You watch debris float past, branches, clumps of grass, and what might have been a beehive. The current is stronger than you'd like, a reminder that water is never fully under your control. In the shelter, the group works to stay warm. Fire starting in this humidity is a slow, frustrating process, but eventually, smoke curls upward, and the warmth spreads through stiff fingers. You pass the time with small repairs, tightening the lashings on your sling, sharpening the edge of your blade, picking tiny burrs from the weave of your basket. Outside, the rain begins to shift from pounding sheets to a soft, persistent drizzle. You step out and watch as mist rises from the river's surface, turning the landscape into a blurred watercolor. Somewhere in that shifting curtain, you spot movement, a dark, upright figure at the far bank. It's too far to make out details, but the posture is unmistakable. The figure stands for a moment, watching. Then it turns and disappears into the trees. You tell yourself it's just another group moving along the river, the way you are. But a small part of you wonders, were they watching to see if you'd move on? Or to see if you'd stay? The rain leaves behind a world that feels scrubbed clean, though not entirely safe. Every leaf glistens, dripping beads of water that patter onto the forest floor. The air smells sharper, like whetstone and crushed greenery, and you can almost taste the minerals in the damp breeze. The group decides to follow the river for one more day before turning inland. You move in single file along a narrow strip of bank where mud squelches underfoot and your toes slip if you're not careful. It's not exactly a graceful march, more like a slow dance with gravity where gravity keeps winning. The river is louder now, swollen from last night's downpour, dragging along debris like a careless shopper tossing items into a cart. You spot the silver flash of a large fish fighting the current, its muscles straining, a living thread caught in the moving fabric of the water. About mid-morning, you come across something that stops everyone in their tracks, a huge fallen tree, its roots torn from the soil, bridging part of the river like a natural walkway. The trunk is slick with moss, and the thought of crossing it makes your stomach tighten. Still, it could save hours of walking. One by one, you shuffle across, arms out for balance, trying not to look at the churning water below. A young boy slips and nearly falls, saved only by a quick grab from his older sister. Your heart is still racing 10 minutes later. Not long after, you find traces of another group. The signs are subtle, a trampled patch of grass, a broken branch, a small pile of ash half buried in wet sand. Whoever they are, they're moving in the same direction you are, and not far ahead. The elders murmur about the possibility of joining forces or the risk of conflict. Historians still debate whether these early encounters more often led to cooperation or confrontation. The truth is probably both, depending on mood, hunger, and whether anyone insulted anyone else's favorite berry patch. Around midday, you stumble on a strange discovery, a pile of river stones stacked in a neat spiral. It's deliberate, too precise for nature's random hand. No one claims responsibility. Some whisper it could be a marker or even a warning. The spiral shape draws your eyes in, and for a moment, you feel dizzy, like the pattern is pulling you somewhere else entirely. You shake it off, telling yourself it's just the heat. By afternoon, the forest begins to thin, giving way to open stretches of tall grass. You can see farther now, but the trade-off is exposure. Without the trees, you feel oddly naked, a moving dot in a sea of green. The wind sweeps over the grass in long waves, and every so often, You spot the sleek movement of an animal's back disappearing into the swaying stalks. The group decides to camp at the edge of this open land, sheltered by a cluster of boulders that seem to have tumbled here long ago. The rocks are warm from the day's sunlight, and you lean against them, letting the heat seep into your muscles. As dusk falls, the sky flares in a brief blaze of orange before dimming to soft purples and deep blues. A chorus of frogs starts up near the water, their calls echoing like a strange, rhythmic chant. Firelight flickers on faces, softening lines of worry into something more peaceful. You think again of the figure you saw yesterday across the river. Maybe they're somewhere out here now, looking at the same sky, hearing the same frogs. You wonder if they're thinking about you too, or if you've already been filed away in their mind as just another traveler passing through. The night is still, but your dreams are restless, full of spirals and shadowed figures standing just beyond the reach of the fire. The morning sun rises slow and heavy, as if even it is reluctant to start the day. Dew clings to every blade of grass, turning the world into a glittering field of tiny mirrors. Your breath clouds in the cool air, but the sky promises heat later, and you already dread it. The group breaks camp quickly. There's an unease no one names out loud, but you can feel it in the way people avoid each other's eyes and in how quietly they pack. The grassland stretches ahead, vast and unbroken, a golden ocean under a pale sky. Every step crunches softly, the sound swallowed by the open air. You take point for a while, scanning for signs of movement. It's harder out here, no rustle of leaves or sudden bird calls to alert you. Predators could be crouched low in the grass, invisible until they are already too close. By mid-morning, you come across a line of low mounds in the earth, each about the length of a person. They are not natural, edges too straight, soil too freshly packed. No one touches them, but you all move a little faster afterward. Historians still debate whether these mounds were burial sites, food storage pits, or some kind of territorial marker. Whatever they were, they belonged to someone, and that someone might still be nearby. A light breeze picks up, bending the grass in ripples. It carries the faint smell of smoke, wood smoke, not wildfire. It's fresh enough that it must be from this morning. The elders exchange quick glances but say nothing, and the group veers slightly east, away from the scent. By noon, you spot something unusual, a single tall tree, standing alone in the middle of the plain like a sentry. Its bark is scarred with deep grooves, clearly cut by human hands, maybe to harvest sap or mark territory. Around its base lie fragments of cracked shells, nuts, perhaps, scattered as though someone had sat here recently for a meal. The heat grows oppressive in the afternoon, pressing down on your shoulders until every step feels like dragging a stubborn child. You stop briefly at a shallow depression where rainwater has collected, but the edges are lined with hoof prints and claw marks. The water smells faintly of mud and animal musk, and no one is eager to drink. You push on until the land begins to slope upward toward a ridge. Climbing it is slow work, the ground loose underfoot, but when you finally crest the top, the view steals your breath. Ahead lies a patchwork of different worlds, rolling grassland, distant clusters of trees, and a thin, twisting ribbon of river catching the sunlight like liquid silver. It's the kind of sight that makes you feel small, not in a bad way, but in the way you realize you're part of something far older and wider than you can fully understand. Strangely, in the far distance, you think you see movement, a line of figures, maybe 6 or 7, moving slowly along the edge of the river. Too far to tell if they're friends or threats, but their presence makes your skin prickle. As the sun dips, you make camp just below the ridge, where the slope offers a bit of shelter from the wind. Tonight's fire is kept smaller than usual, shielded behind rocks. You eat in near silence, the only sound the soft crackle of wood and the distant calls of night birds. You lie down staring at the sky, where stars appear like a slow sprinkle of salt over black cloth. Somewhere out there, others are staring up too, maybe thinking of you the way you're thinking of them, close in the same world, but separated by grass, by time, by intent. Sleep comes, but not deeply. Dreams slide in and out like shadows in tall grass, and you wake more than once to the feeling of being watched. Dawn comes without warning, a sudden pale light spilling over the ridge, washing away the shadows before you're ready to move. The air is still cool, but the promise of heat lingers, heavy as a waiting drumbeat. You stand, stretch, and feel the faint ache in your calves from yesterday's climb. The group moves quickly, leaving no trace of the camp behind. Every scrap of food, every tool, every footprint is erased or hidden. This isn't just habit, it's caution. You remember the distant figures by the river last night, and so does everyone else. You take the lead again, following a faint game trail down into a shallow valley. The land here is different, more scattered shrubs, thorny and stubborn. Their branches clutching at your skin like they have a personal grudge. A small bird startles from one bush, flashing a streak of bright yellow before disappearing into another thicket. The air smells faintly sweet here, though you can't place the source. Maybe a flowering plant somewhere ahead. Halfway down the slope, you spot something odd, a series of shallow holes dug into the earth, each about the size of a large melon. The soil inside is damp, darker than the surrounding ground. You squat to look closer. Could be from foraging animals, but the spacing feels too deliberate. Historians still debate whether early humans made such pits to trap small animals or to dig for tubers and roots. If it's the latter, whoever dug them knew exactly where to find the hidden food. By late morning, the valley floor levels out, and you come upon a stream trickling lazily over smooth stones. The water is shallow, so clear you can see every pebble, every darting shadow of a small fish. You kneel to drink, cupping your hands, letting the coolness slide down your throat. Around you, others do the same, relief written plainly on their faces. Not far from the stream, you find evidence of someone else's presence, 3 stones arranged in a tight triangle, the center blackened with old ash. The fire has been cold for days, maybe weeks, but it's unmistakably the work of human hands. A scrap of charred wood crumbles when you touch it. Whoever was here before had the same needs as you, or water, food, warmth, and they might not be far. The afternoon is spent moving along the stream, using its winding path as a guide. The banks are dotted with paw prints, small antelope, larger predators, and something that could belong to another human. Each time you think about stopping, the thought of the distant figures keeps you going. At one bend in the stream, you spot something strange, an old tree trunk half buried in the bank, carved with deep, parallel notches. They're too regular to be animal marks, but their purpose isn't clear. Decoration? A counting system? A territorial warning? No one agrees, even among scholars. You trace one with your fingers and feel the groove still sharp under the weathering, like the hand that cut them wanted them to last. By evening, the valley opens up into a wide, grassy basin. The stream here pools into a shallow pond ringed with reeds, buzzing with dragonflies. You set camp well away from the water's edge, close enough to collect what you need, far enough to avoid the creatures that might visit at night. Dinner is small, roots roasted in the coals, a handful of berries gathered earlier. The flavor is earthy, faintly bitter, but the warmth is welcome as the wind picks up. Overhead, clouds gather, their underbellies glowing pink and orange in the fading light. You lie back after eating, listening to the chorus of frogs by the pond. Somewhere beyond the basin, the world goes on, other groups moving under the same sky, their fires flickering unseen. You wonder if the figures by the river will cross your path again, or if you will pass each other forever, always just out of sight. Sleep comes easier tonight, the sound of water and wind blurring into a steady, comforting hum. Still, part of you stays awake, ears tuned for footsteps in the grass. Rain begins in the night, soft at first, like a distant whisper against the grass, then heavier, each drop drumming on the earth until it becomes a steady, unbroken sound. You wake to the cool dampness on your skin, the scent of wet soil sharp in your nose. The fire has collapsed into a heap of blackened wood, too sodden to coax back to life. By dawn, the pond is a glassy grey under a low sky. Mist curls off its surface, drifting between the reeds. The others move quietly, shoulders hunched against the chill. Rain is both gift and trouble. It brings fresh water, masks scent and sound, but also slows movement and makes everything heavier. You leave the basin heading east, where the land rises again. The grass is slick underfoot, and the soil clings to your feet in stubborn clumps. Along the way, you pass a cluster of tall plants with broad leaves, each cupping a pool of rainwater. A child in the group stops to drink from one, grinning as the cool water spills down their chin. You remember doing the same, long before you learn to carry water in a skin. Halfway up the slope, you spot movement through the rain, something dark and hunched, picking its way along the rocks. You freeze, narrowing your eyes. It's not human. A baboon, large and scarred, its wet fur plastered to its body. It pauses, stares back at you with a deep, measuring gaze, then disappears behind a ridge. Baboons can be dangerous, too smart to underestimate. Too quick to ignore. By midday, you reach a ridge where the rain thins to a mist. Below, the land rolls in long waves of green and gold, dotted with stands of low trees. Somewhere out there, you know, are other fires, other stories. But the only movement you see is the shifting curtain of rain sweeping across the distance. The group descends into a shallow ravine for shelter. The walls here are streaked with mineral stains, reds, yellows, even faint blue. In one section, the stone bears faint markings, lines and curves that don't seem random. You trace them with your fingers, feeling their deliberate flow. Were they made by human hands? If so, why? As the afternoon passes, the rain finally slows. You and two others move along the ravine, searching for something to hunt. The wet earth is a map of tracks, hoof prints, bird claws, the padded ovals of a feline predator. One set is fresh, the edges still sharp. You follow them carefully, keeping downwind. The trail leads to a small clearing where a young antelope grazes alone. Its coat darkened by rain. You notch your spear, wait for the right moment, and then, a cry echoes through the trees, not from you but from the animal itself as it bolts. From the corner of your eye, you see Y, a lean, spotted cat, low to the ground, muscles coiled like rope. It hasn't seen you yet. You stay perfectly still as it vanishes after its prey, the grass shivering in its wake. When you return to camp empty-handed, no one blames you. The rain has soaked everything, dulled every scent, made every step slow. You share the last of yesterday's roasted roots, then huddle close for warmth as the grey sky deepens into night. The world feels muffled in the aftermath of rain. Every sound caught in damp air. Somewhere far away, thunder mutters one last time. You fall asleep to the smell of wet earth, dreaming of clearer skies ahead. Morning comes bright and sharp, the kind of day that feels scrubbed clean after rain. The air is crisp, the sky a hard, cloudless blue that makes you squint. Dew clings to every blade of grass, sparkling like shards of glass in the sunlight. It's the first time in days you've woken without the sound of water falling. You stretch, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin. After so many grey days, its heat feels like a luxury, like firelight that touches everything at once. The others are already moving, checking gear, tightening hide straps, and shaking out damp skins to dry. Today's goal is not just food, but position. From this ridge, you've seen faint trails winding toward a narrow pass in the hills ahead. That pass is valuable, an animal crossing, a human crossing, and a vantage point all in one. If you control it, you control movement through this part of the land. As you travel, you notice how alive everything seems after the rain. Birds call from every direction. Insects hum in low grass. Even the wind feels different, warmer, carrying scents of blooming flowers from far away. You pass shallow puddles where frogs sit still, eyes just above the surface, watching everything. By mid-morning, you spot signs of something unusual, tree trunks stripped of bark in long, vertical swaths. A few still carry claw marks, deep, spaced just so. You know this pattern. A bear. Not one of the massive brown ones from colder lands, but still large enough to make you think twice. Bears are rare here, but the recent rains might have drawn it closer, searching for roots, berries, or carrion. Historians still debate whether your kind saw bears as rivals or resources. Some evidence suggests scavenging from their kills, other finds hint at deliberate hunting, though the risk is enormous. You can't exactly just run from something that can sprint faster than you over short distances. Reaching the pass by midday, you find it narrower than it looked from a distance. Sheer rock walls rise on both sides, pocked with small caves. Wind whistles through like a whisper that never ends. You climb a side ledge for a better view, fingers slipping slightly on the smooth stone. From here, the land spreads in two directions, rolling grassland to the west, denser scrub and trees to the east. Below, you spot faint signs of other travelers, the soft curve of a human footprint in drying mud, a broken stick where something brushed past. Could be days old. Could be this morning. There's no way to be sure. You decide to rest here for the afternoon. The ledges make good shelter, and there's enough visibility to spot approaching animals, or people, before they get close. You gather dry grass and set a small fire, watching smoke curl into the blue sky. Later, while searching one of the caves for signs of animals, you find something unexpected, a cluster of old bones, weathered and light. Not scattered by scavengers, but arranged, almost in a circle. Some bear marks that could be from tools, others from teeth. You crouch, tracing the outline of a skull fragment with your fingertips. The others watch quietly. Whoever left these, their story ended here long before you arrived. As the sun drops, you prepare for night. The pass cools quickly, shadows pooling in every hollow. You pull your furs close, the rock still warm from the day against your back. From somewhere in the dark, far below, a single howl rises, long, low, and steady. Not close enough to worry, but close enough to remember that in this world, nothing really belongs to you. You fall asleep to the faint warmth of the fire and the endless whisper of wind through the pass. Dawn comes with a heavy stillness, the kind that makes you pause before moving. No birdsong. No wind. Just the faint crackle of embers and the slow shift of your own breath. It's the kind of quiet that feels like the land is listening, waiting for you to make the first sound. You stand, stretching the stiffness from your limbs, and glance toward the pass. The sky is pale and washed out, streaked with the faintest blush of pink. The air tastes different, cooler, but with an undercurrent of something metallic, like wet stone. Somewhere, rain has fallen again. Today's path takes you east, toward thicker brush and low, tangled trees. The ground softens here, the soil rich and damp beneath your feet. You move slowly, weaving between thorny branches, your skin prickling each time you brush against one. Small fruits hang from some bushes, red and glossy. Tempting, but you've learned enough to know that bright colors can mean danger. A quick test with a sliver of the fruit against your lip burns sharply. Poison. Mid-morning brings the sound of water. You follow it until you find a shallow creek, clear and cold, winding between moss-covered stones. Small fish dart in the current, their scales flashing like silver coins. It would be easy to catch a few, but you remember the bigger goal, moving deeper, finding resources, and keeping ahead of whoever might have left those footprints yesterday. As you move upstream, you spot something wedged between two stones, a length of worked wood, polished smooth, one end carved into a sharp, chiseled point. It's too deliberate to be natural. Someone has been here recently, shaping tools in the same way you and your group do. Historians still debate how far early human groups roamed, and whether they avoided one another or sought alliances. Evidence of both exists, burials with shared objects, but also injuries consistent with fighting. You wonder which kind of encounter you'd have here. The day warms, and insects begin to hum thickly around you. You swipe at them, muttering under your breath, half amused and half annoyed. Some things in history never change. Mosquitoes have been making themselves unwelcome for millions of years. By early afternoon, you reach a clearing where sunlight floods through the canopy. The grass here is short, dotted with tiny yellow flowers. In the center lies the skeletal remains of a large animal, its ribs arched like the frame of an old boat. Judging by the size, it could have been a giant antelope. The bones are clean, too clean for a fresh kill. You notice faint scrape marks on one rib, as if someone pried away meat with a sharp edge. You crouch, brushing away dirt until you find a small, flint shard still embedded in the earth. There's movement at the far edge of the clearing. Not an animal. A human figure, slim, quick, vanishing between the trees before you can call out. Your heart beats faster, not entirely from fear. You've seen strangers from afar before, but here, alone in this stretch of wild, the moment feels different. You linger in the clearing for a while, pretending not to notice the faint sound of twigs snapping in the distance. Whoever's there, they're watching just as you are. It's a standoff without words, and eventually, the watcher slips away. As the day fades, you find a small rise near the creek to make camp. The ground is dry, and you arrange stones in a rough circle for the fire. The flames cast long, flickering shadows into the brush, and you imagine shapes in them, faces you've known, faces you've never met, night comes quietly, but you keep one ear open, just in case the watcher decides to return. In this world, strangers can be friends, rivals, or nothing at all. The only way to know is to meet them, and that's never without risk. The next morning breaks with a brittle chill. Your fire has burned down to faint orange embers, and mist drapes itself low over the ground, curling through the trees in slow, deliberate streams. You breathe it in, damp and cold, and it fills your lungs with a taste of stone and leaf. You don't waste time. The figure you saw yesterday hasn't left your thoughts, and every instinct says to stay alert. You follow the creek until it narrows, bubbling over slick, black rock. Here, the air is thick with the smell of wet earth, and the undergrowth pushes in tighter, forcing you to bend and weave through it. Midway through your trek, you spot signs, subtle but unmistakable. A small branch bent in an unnatural way. A smear of darker mud on a rock. To anyone else, they'd be meaningless. But to you, they whisper of deliberate passage. Someone is marking a trail. Whether they're leading or luring is harder to say. Around midday, the forest opens onto a plateau, a sloping rise of grass that gives you your first real view in days. The horizon stretches far, a patchwork of green and gold. You can see the darker, denser forests in the east, and to the south, the faint shimmer of what might be a large body of water. The wind here is stronger, tugging at your hair and clothes. It's here, in this openness, that you find the trap. At first, it's just a tangle of grass and sticks. Then you see the shallow pit beneath, lined with sharpened stakes of bone. Some are stained dark, and you can guess why. This is no accident, it's built for hunting, or perhaps for defense. Whoever made it knows this land, knows how to shape it to their will. Your stomach knots. If the watcher from yesterday said this, they are not just a wanderer. They're skilled, cautious, and possibly dangerous. You skirt the trap, leaving no sign you noticed it. Later, when you stop to drink from a small pool, you see movement again, closer this time. The same slim figure, crouched at the edge of the brush, eyes locked on you. There's no expression you can read, only the stillness of an animal deciding whether to strike or flee. You hold your ground. Slowly, you lift your hands, palms open. No weapon. The figure tilts their head, studying you. Then, with a sudden shift, they vanish back into the trees. The sound of their steps fades quickly, swallowed by the forest. Historians often wonder what these moments were like for early humans, when strangers met for the first time. Did they speak? Did they barter? Or did they simply watch, each one weighing the other's worth? Without language. Meaning had to be made from movement, from distance, from the set of a jaw or the shape of a hand. As the sun leans toward the west, you press on, keeping close to the shadows. You can't shake the feeling you're being herded, subtly, but with purpose. The terrain funnels you toward a narrow valley, its walls rising steeply on either side. You think of turning back, but something in you resists. Curiosity is a dangerous thing, but it's what's carried your kind this far. By the time you reach the valley's heart, the light is dim, the sky cut into a ribbon above. The air is warmer here, stiller. You find a small cave at the base of the rock wall, just enough space for shelter. It smells faintly of smoke. Old but not ancient. Someone has used this place before. You gather a few branches for the night's fire, striking sparks carefully until the flame takes. The fire's glow paints the cave walls in shifting gold, and as you settle in, you notice something etched into the stone, a series of lines, not random, but patterned. Parallel strokes, then a swirl, then a mark like a crescent moon. Your pulse quickens. These could be marks of territory. Or they could be something older, an attempt to remember, to record. You don't sleep quickly. Each crack of a twig outside makes your muscles tense. But the watcher doesn't come. Not yet. At first light, the fire is nothing but grey ash and a faint curl of smoke. You step outside the cave, stretching muscles stiff from the cold ground. The valley is quiet, too quiet. Even the wind seems to be holding its breath. You walk the perimeter, studying the rock walls for more of the strange carvings you found last night. There are more here, faint under the weathering of rain and sun. One mark resembles a cluster of dots, another looks like an animal with elongated limbs. They're not random scratches, someone took time to make these. Whether they tell a story or mark a warning, you can't yet say. As you move deeper into the valley, you find evidence of life. A cracked tortoise shell. Its insides long since picked clean. A scattering of charred wood half buried in the dirt. A flat stone worn smooth, perhaps from years of grinding seeds or nuts. Each object is a whisper of the people who might still be near. You decide to follow a narrow trail leading out of the valley's far end. It winds upward through a choke of vines and loose rock until you emerge onto a higher ridge. From here, the land unfolds in a wide sweep, dense forests to the north, the glinting expanse of water to the south, and in between, a scatter of open grasslands. Somewhere out there, the watcher moves. Near midday, you catch a flash of movement again, this time not alone. Two figures, lean and quick, crossing an open patch of ground far below. They move with a purpose, their bodies angled forward, carrying something long and thin, spears, perhaps. The sight sets your nerves alight. If they've been tracking you, they're patient hunters. Instead of fleeing, you keep your pace steady. Panic will make you clumsy, and clumsy will make you prey. You skirt the ridge, staying in the broken shadows cast by boulders. Late in the afternoon, you come across a tree unlike the others, massive, ancient, its trunk split open into a hollow space wide enough to stand in. Inside, the air is cool and smells faintly of resin. Your eyes adjust to the dim light, and you see more markings, this time painted rather than carved. Dark, earthy reds and deep blacks swirl across the inner bark in looping shapes. Some resemble animals, others are abstract, almost like the path of rivers or the arc of stars. You touch the surface lightly, feeling the grit of pigment. Whoever made these knew how to make colors last. This is not idle decoration. This is memory made visible. As you study the paintings, a faint sound reaches you, footsteps. Deliberate and slow. You step out of the hollow, scanning the trees. There they are. Two of them, standing just at the edge of the clearing. Both are lean, their skin marked with streaks of ochre. Their hair is bound back with strips of plant fiber. One holds a spear tipped with sharpened bone, the other grips a stone blade. For a long moment, none of you move. The air feels heavy, almost solid between you. Then one of them steps forward, not in attack, but in assessment. Their eyes move over you, lingering on the tools at your belt. The way you stand, you lift your hands again, palms out. No threat. The figure tilts their head, as if weighing the truth of that. Then they speak. It's not speech as you know it, more a series of clicks and low tones. But there's intention in it, a rhythm that feels like language. You can't understand, yet you feel the pull of meaning in the sounds. You respond the only way you can, by mimicking the cadence, not the exact sound. It earns you a flicker of something, perhaps amusement, perhaps curiosity. Without warning, the second figure moves to your side, inspecting the small pouch at your hip. They lift it, weigh it, then return it without taking anything. A test, maybe. Finally, the one with the spear points toward the south, then gestures for you to follow. You hesitate only a heartbeat before stepping forward. Historians believe these moments, when strangers decided not to kill each other, were among the most important in human survival. Trust, even fragile, allowed for the sharing of food, of shelter, of knowledge. Without it, our ancestors might never have spread beyond their first valleys. You walk with them until dusk, the forest darkening around you. When they finally stop, it's at the edge of a small camp, half hidden under the trees, ringed with smoke from a low-burning fire. Shadows shift inside, other figures moving. Whatever happens next, you've crossed a threshold. You're no longer alone. Night settles over the camp like a thick blanket. The fire at the center crackles low, casting shifting gold light over the faces of the people gathered around it. There are more than you first saw, 8 in total, ranging from an elderly figure with deeply lined skin to a child barely old enough to walk. They watch you openly but without aggression. The two who brought you here sit nearby, speaking in low voices with the others. You catch occasional glances in your direction, but no one yet makes a move to send you away. The camp is arranged with quiet intention. Sleeping areas are marked by mats woven from plant fibers, each with a small pile of belongings beside it, wooden bowls, flint tools, animal hides. A few spears lean against a tree, their tips gleaming faintly in the firelight. Bundles of dried plants hang from low branches, their sharp, earthy scent mingling with the smoke. One of the younger men offers you something from a leaf, roasted tubers, still steaming. You hesitate, then take one, feeling the warmth seep into your cold hands. The first bite is starchy, almost sweet. It fills your mouth and settles heavily in your stomach, a reminder of just how long it's been since you ate a full meal. Gradually, the atmosphere shifts. The people begin to move about with less guardedness, as though your presence is no longer a question but a fact. A woman sits across from you, studying your face with an intensity that makes you wonder if she sees some resemblance, someone lost or remembered. The older figure, who seems to hold quiet authority, begins to speak. The language is unfamiliar but musical, the cadence rising and falling in a way that feels like storytelling. Others nod, adding short phrases, laughter, or sharp sounds of agreement, then they look to you. Expectation hangs in the air. They want you to speak, to give your own story in return. You point to yourself, say your name slowly. Then, with gestures and simple words, you trace your journey, the storm, the ship, the wreck, the long walk. You mimic the rain, the waves, the wind. You show your empty hands to signal loss, then point to the two who found you. They listen intently. The child laughs when you exaggerate the height of the waves, and you catch a few smiles. Even without shared words, the meaning seems to reach them. When your tale ends, the older figure rises and moves to the edge of the firelight. They return carrying something wrapped in animal hide. With careful hands, they unfold it to reveal a necklace, twisted cord strung with small, polished bones. They place it over your head. The gesture feels ceremonial, though you don't yet know its meaning. A welcome, perhaps. Or a claim. Later, as the fire burns low, you notice the group's rhythms. Some sleep curled near the warmth, others keep watch, their eyes scanning the darkness beyond the camp. You realize they are not merely gathered here by chance, they are part of a network, moving through this land with purpose. Lying on the woven mat they've given you, you stare up at the small patch of visible stars. The sounds of the night, crickets, the distant rush of water, the soft breathing of those around you, blend into a rhythm you haven't known in weeks. You're aware of the danger still. Trust can break as easily as it's given. But for now, in this fragile space between strangers and kin, you have something you haven't felt since the day you were cast ashore, a place to rest. Historians might say this moment marks more than survival, it's the start of belonging. Even in the harshest landscapes, humans sought connection, not just shelter. It was in these fireside circles, beneath starlit skies, that our species learned to weave its stories together. You close your eyes, the fire's warmth on your skin, and let the dark carry you into sleep.